Hello, Edwina Murphy-Droomer is my name, and I want to warmly welcome you to this interview in the series where I am speaking to phenomenal feminine entrepreneurs in order to gain their life-changing insights into taking control of your prosperity, your freedom, and your beautiful future. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Dr. Marcy Cole. Marcy, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. What a delight and honor. Thank you, Edwina.
So, Marcy, for those in our audience that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you until now, I would love if we could start with a little bit of, who you are, the work that you do, and then we'll look at your transition from the corporate space into the entrepreneurial world.
Okay, well, I have a hummingbird spirit, and that means I tend to want to be in a lot of different places at the same time almost. And so I basically, I've got my hands in three professional pots. One is I have a holistic psychotherapy practice, which is now virtual. I am also the wellness educator at an independent school in Los Angeles, serving students, faculty, parents, and staff. And I facilitate life enrichment events that's also global now and virtual through a platform called First Tuesday Global, which has been going on for about 20 years.
Amazing. I just wrote down, I do this, I write these little notes as you say things, a hummingbird spirit. Oh, that makes me feel happy.
Someone had a birthday party for me once, and a surprise thing, and they had hummingbird theme, and I'm like, oh, well, I love hummingbirds. What's with the hummingbirds? Have you shadowed yourself recently? Have you followed yourself around? I love to pollinate. So if it's someone, someone's wonderful, I want to share it. If there's a piece of wisdom, I want to share it. And that's what we do. We flit around and we do, that's the way I do it. Some people just focus on one thing, which has its merits too, I must say.
I love it. I don't think I'll ever forget that. So I think it'd be really helpful if we started with, as a psychotherapist, you call yourself an holistic psychotherapist. So what's the difference?
So, most disciplines in psychology, oftentimes the early training is traditional. And I also went through early traditional training, got my master's, my doctorate. And we're talking about the power of the unconscious that affects our experience. We're talking about things don't happen in a vacuum. So we go back in time and we connect the dots. But I also became very, very interested in the holistic model of health and well-being. So the way I kind of describe it, it's like the four legs of a table. There's physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So when we're focusing on one or two, but not the others, we're going to feel a little imbalanced. So I'm listening for, when I work with clients, I'm listening for issues in their physical health. I'm listening to their beliefs, perceptions, assumptions here. I'm listening for how open their heart is toward themselves and others. And I'm listening to their connection, whatever that may mean to them, to the divine, to things we cannot see that are here, are benevolent supports in our life. So that's a very quick little soundbite about, from my perspective, what holistic psychotherapy is about.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the four legs of a table. I talk about pieces of a puzzle. We can't, my background is naturopathy. And I know I became obsessed, I did functional nutrition. I was obsessed with food, and I was all food, and my health is really good, but I neglected the exercise. And it's like, without all these lovely pieces of the puzzle together, it doesn't quite work.
Yes. And it's not, look, we have to be careful about our expectations of ourselves. It's not about working necessarily at our optimal levels every second of every day, but we do our best to keep attending at least to all of these dimensions of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the purposes of this series is really to give people a picture of, what it looks like to move into the entrepreneurial world, particularly this online space. So you started with your traditional training. Could you talk to us a bit about how you came to move into the online space? I know you've got your works in both platforms now, but just how that transition happened and why you did it.
Well, actually, if I may, I'd love to share with you a step before that, which is that I wasn't even in the space of wellness. I was working for a very big broadcasting company in Chicago, and I was a radio, TV, film major and ended up selling media time and for a television rep firm that was very lucrative all through my 20s. And they were grooming me for management and all of this. But you know, that little voice inside that says, I can't see myself doing this forever. And for me, my why was that I was socially stimulated. The money was great. The hours were great. It was 9 to 5. It was really a dream job back then, but it wasn't feeding my soul. And I knew that it wasn't really speaking to my higher calling and an elevated purpose, which was really about contribution. I just wanted to make a contribution, and I didn't know what that meant. So I say to people all the time, you don't even realize at the time. I mean, it was scary, but you don't realize the level of courage it takes to jump off a platform like that. That's lucrative, where you're flying and flowing and everything's cool, and people think you're nuts for getting off. But I did. And I went back I was going to school part-time, and then I had to get off to finish my internship and all that. And then I transferred into the space of social work, clinical work with people, chronically mentally ill, in hospital, out of hospital. So that happened for many years. And I ended up then in my own private practice. I went from a community mental health clinic for 5 years, making almost nothing, but so filled up with inspired purpose, so amazed by the strength of the human spirit, by people people said, oh, they won't even be able to tolerate 10 minutes with you. And, and I had a very different experience of that. And so it was really illuminating on a lot of levels. But then I went into a private practice. So then I leaped out of not getting a paycheck and starting from my own, and that grew. Yeah. And that grew and grew. And then I didn't even know about the broader internet marketing wasn't even happening.
Yeah.
And so it was just going to an office, seeing my clients, and, and then when I moved to Los Angeles is around the time that internet marketing started booming. And then I thought, gosh, it is kind of the dollars for hours, it is sort of a very simplified system that it's sustainable to a certain extent, but it doesn't have growth potential in terms of your reach. And if financial abundance is important, also there's a ceiling of how much you can do, unless you want to work, 40, 50 hours a week seeing clients. So then there was a whole nother growth spurt in learning about how to evolve from that place. But I'll pause there because there's more, but I'll pause right there if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I think it leads beautifully into what I wanted to ask you about, risk taking and what it, I've interviewed a few people already for this series, and I'm just really curious about the psychology that behind the risk taking, the decision to stay in that comfortable place, what you need around you, what you need to tap into in order to take those big leaps. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't really believe in risk. I don't even believe in the concept in a way. Like even the word, there's so much power in our language and our perceptions of things, right? First, it starts with the perception and then the words. And so it's true. Most of us think of it as risk, and that's the way it's talked about a lot. But I really learned, thankfully, to follow that truth, follow the truth of my heart. And if you follow your truth, there's no risk involved. I don't even believe in it. I think it's just about reward. I think you quickly, that beautiful saying, we have leap and the net will appear. And Goethe's, at the point of commitment, the universe conspires to assist. That's what happens, And so I would say to somebody, if you believe in yourself, you are the common denominator in your life, and you believe that you are universally supported by, again, benevolent forces, that if you are in harmony with your truth, there's going to be an alignment with people, places, opportunities, and a frequency that supports you. And so I think there needs to be an attunement of that first. You need to be able to attune to your truth. And then you need to be able to receive the faith to follow that through line. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying there aren't moments of human, like, oh boy, here I go. Like I had those moments. It wasn't like, I was like, bye. I remember the last day at the company and the television, I was a ball of tears. I was like, whoa, but you know what? I actually never look back. And I think that's the thing. When we're on our path, we quickly, we really don't look back. If someone said, would you want to go back there? Would you like, because a little, you know, money is a little tight in the beginning or whatever, you're not uncertain, would you, most of us would say, no, thank you, you know? So I would share that first. I would share that risk is a perception, and it's about staying in your truth and looking for the takeaways and really acknowledging the rewards every step of the way.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting way to look at it. And I love it. I really do. I think, you know, for a lot of women, and I say this because I know that I was in that place 100%, where it's like, what do you keep talking about, this inner voice, you know, intuition? And I think I'm an controlling analyzer for people that know about the different operating systems. And so I get caught in my head a lot. I want the checklist, give me that. And the idea of making these life-changing decisions from a gut feeling took me a lot. It took me years of personal development to really understand that. So what do you how do you speak to that person, to the idea of, but, you know, I've got bills to pay and these responsibilities, and this is, you know, I left school and you get a job, and, you know, that's how most of us were brought up. So how do you support people to take those first steps to trust that gut voice?
Yes, it's such a great question, Edwina. It's, look, we are taught, we are bombarded with so much information and so much indoctrination from our family of origin, sometimes from our communities, our churches, our faith, our schools, our country, our politics. You know, lots of systems are saying, this is what you should do. This is how you should feel. This is how you should do it. These are the steps in life you should take to be successful. And so we just have to acknowledge, first of all, we're at the mercy of that sometimes. And we don't have a lot of training in listening to, well, what do I think and how do I feel and what do I sense? And this is why actually social emotional learning is happening in schools, finally, about self-confidence and following and communication and problem solving. And so children are receiving a little bit more of that now, or at least starting to. But so I just want to normalize the fact that it can be confusing because we have a lot of voices in our head. So it's not an or, it's not a, well, be responsible or just throw all caution to the wind and just be like, oh, well, eat bonbons and think that something's going to fall from the sky that's in alignment with your dreams. No. Obviously, you have, okay, most of us have bills to pay. So obviously there might be, you're going to use your executive functioning, your analytical skills, your planning, your strategic planning, your foresight to say, okay, what would it mean to make this happen so that I can pay my bills? And in the meantime, maybe it's two jobs. Maybe it's, when I was working for the television, I was going to school part-time because I wanted to see if my instincts were on. And once I went to school part-time, I realized how stimulated I was, which was reinforcing the decision, right? So I think it's about being able to slow everything down, to listen, plan for, and then find sometimes a hybrid to stick your toe in the water, right? And hope for the best. Yes. And by the way, here's the other thing. We're not trapped. We're not trapped. I would say, there's always an exit somewhere. I thought to myself when I jumped off the television track, I thought, I feel like if I'm leaving on a good note, I can come back if I want to. And if not, another firm. So it's about having enough confidence in yourself that we can find our way through the twists and turns, even if we want to about face,
Absolutely. So that's obviously that's a big thing that holds many women back. You have you are talking to so many different people in this space in lots of different platforms. So what are the main things that you see that hold women back?
Well, I think that, in my First Tuesday Global Network for Women, where we come together once a month, there's mostly they're entrepreneurs. And what I've witnessed on that front, also private clients, is a couple of things. I've noticed that we tend to disempower ourselves by forgetting the truth of who we are, by forgetting how precious we are, forgetting how powerful we are, forgetting how much we are unique beings, intrinsically of value. And so sometimes it's the self-worth piece first. It's the critical voice that says, who am I to write this book? And who am I to teach this class? And who am I to become CEO of my own company? And who am I to whatever it is? And then we want to be able to answer back that voice with, who are you not?
Yeah.
Right? How many books have there been about parenting and self-esteem and making money? And like, it'll never, right? But what you're going to say in the way you're going to say it with your own authentic experience at the moment that someone else is going to pick it up and read it is going to be divine providence. And so there's that. I also know, and it's not just what I've observed, I've experienced it too along the way at times where we don't get enough help. We don't get enough support. And we're afraid to really stretch and be like, whoa, wait, I'm going to take this much of my income or the income that I don't even have yet and ask for help and hire an assistant or hire an expert in this or a coach.
Yeah.
But any really successful entrepreneurial executive coach will tell you that what you invest in, you receive.
Yeah.
And it's hard to move the needle. And that goes back to what we call risk. It's which I would say is an investment, different than risk. Investment.
Investing in yourself. Yeah.
Yes. And your business.
I talk about, we always have money for what we value. And I think, a lot of my audience are mums and they understand this. If your child suddenly needs something, we find the money because we value it. But placing that same value on things for ourselves is often the bit that is missing. We'll find it for other people, but finding it for ourselves is the challenge often.
Isn't that the truth? Yes. Yeah. And if we can just as women, I think one of the ways we find our way back to center and back to that truth is to say, what would I say to my child? If my growing daughter was feeling insecure or afraid to raise her hand, or I can't do that, or I'm afraid, or I have to do it the same way over and over and over, or, what would we say to her? What would we say to our dearest friend? What would we say to someone who's our client, who's coming to us for support and guidance? And can we remember that's our real voice?
Yeah.
That's the real voice of wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a very interesting conversation with Forbes Riley, who's also part of this series, about what I term not good enough syndrome or imposter syndrome, because it's something that I hear my clients talk about a lot. I've used that story to illustrate, part of my journey. And Forbes's response to that, which I hugely appreciate, was that we've got to stop talking about this, because men that are standing on stages and, they're not talking about not feeling good enough, and they're not talking about imposter syndrome. And what we focus on expands. We all know that.
Yes.
My question for you is, and not making anyone right or wrong, this is all part of having conversations that we get to grow from, is, do we stop talking about it? Because it is something that I've talked about a lot, but I feel that it's almost like the elephant in the room that we need to address for women. What are your thoughts and what do you see?
Well, I don't think we should stop talking about anything that's real and that's coming up, right? And that's individually or collectively experienced. And this imposter thing is really about disconnection from self, I think. And when we talk about anxiety and depression, and I think about it as disconnection. I really think that so much of when we lose our way, or when we have those moments of self-doubt, is because we've disconnected from our source, our inner light and reason for being here. Yeah. So I don't think we should stop talking about it. I also don't necessarily think this is a gender female thing. I actually have a young man, private client in his 20s on Wall Street, who literally said those words to me: I feel like an imposter. Yeah. Because he's just in this world, but deep down, he's a philosopher, he's a sensitive being, he's all of these things, and he's playing this role and having those drinks with the guys after work when he doesn't want to drink at all. And, sweatshop mentality and trying to keep up. And so I think this is a human experience, really. So perhaps some of the audience are mothers raising sons. You know, it's not just the girls who start to disconnect from our voice kind of young, to be sugar and spice and everything nice for everyone else, be, you know, other directed versus self-directed. It happens to boys and men too. So I would, but I mean, I remember, I will share this with you. I remember getting hired at 21 at this television rep firm and in Chicago. And long story short, my first day was, they were like, okay, this is your office on the 32nd floor overlooking Michigan Avenue. And with an assistant, actually I was 22, with an assistant saying Marcy Cole's office. And I was like, oh my God. And I called my mom and my boyfriend at the time. I'm like, oh my God, I said those words, I feel like an imposter. Whoa, what am I doing? Like, how are they? But it took a year. I closed my door and I just put, you know, I just focused on what I needed to learn and I did the best I could. And then I woke up one day and I was like, this man who hired me is a smart man. He's not doing me any favors. You know, he saw something in me. He wanted to, you know, guide and develop. And I said yes, and he said yes, and here we are. So we are what we're meant to be, whether it's pen on paper, on the stage, working in a team, you know, launching a new business, creating a business plan. So that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, it's not.
Thoughts that come to my mind.
Yeah, you know, it's very relevant. And you know, I've done a lot of these series now and I've done a lot of interviews. But you know, for a long time, I would get feedback from people that, oh my goodness, your interviews are amazing. And it was almost paralyzing because I had this conversation that maybe I flipped it. And if they see me again and I'm terrible, you know, I think it's real. It's real for everybody. And I share these stories, not because it's fun to share it, but because I want that conversation in other people's heads when they write a blog post or they put something out there, they get wonderful feedback. Don't let it paralyze you. You know, we're all doing it behind closed doors. We're all having these same conversations and it's about just trusting that faith thing and moving forward.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It's wonderful. And you're hearing from all these people and all these people bring different ideas and thoughts and some are congruent and some are different and and the audience gets to pick and choose what resonates with you, what lands for you, what's meaningful for you, what stretches your consciousness, what aligns with it. What's, you know, what's of value moving forward.
Yeah. So part of this series, we talk about prosperity and, you know, like you've touched on that with your ability to reach more people in the entrepreneurial space. And, you know, another part is freedom. And I think it's one of those words that we throw around a lot and it means different things to different people. So what does freedom mean to you in your life and the world that you're creating?
That's a beautiful question. First of all, freedom is one of my favorite things of words of all time. I don't know if anyone listening has studied numerology, but my numerology, I think, is a 5. Freedom and discipline. It's that sometimes when we're focused, we can move mountains, but oftentimes because of the hummingbird stuff, it can be hard to focus and complete it. But boy, when we do, there's freedom. That's the beauty. But freedom to me, you know, that it just comes back to that Shakespearean, I think Shakespeare, right? To thine own self be true. You know, freedom to me is giving ourselves first permission and a space to be real. To just be back to that truth piece. And from that place, you engender connection with others. And from that place, you engender others trust you, you know. And so, you know, I said to my stepdaughter a long time ago when she was a teenager, I said, so if someone tells you the truth 8 out of 10 times, do you trust them? She thought, she's like, no. It's like, why not? Why can't you trust them? Well, because you don't know when the two out of 10 times is, right? And that's true. And so if we can be free to just be in that truth, and when we detour, if we betray that truth with ourselves or someone else, we course correct and we go, you know what? That's not actually that's actually not true for me.
Yeah.
This is true for me.
Yeah.
So freedom is truth. And from that place, so you have the connectivity with others, you have greater trust. And then from a business standpoint, hello, that is monetizable, because that's what it's about. It's about being in the truth of why you're here, what you want to share with the world, and have others trust it and be able to seek you out and be able to partner with you to purchase your products or your services, right? So I think freedom, it starts with truth. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a performance coach a couple of years ago, and she said something to me, like those comments that come in and just stick in your head.
Yes.
And she said to me, your ability to keep your word to yourself is equal to your level of joy in the world. And it took me a long time to really get my head around that. But I started to notice how often I lied to myself, or I broke my word to myself, undermining that, the importance of my word. And it was such a profound thing. It's really played a big role in being much more careful about what I let come out of my mouth now.
Yes, and I like, I'm gonna think about this during and after our call too, because all of us can relate to that. I think that's a very wise share, because it's true when we say this is what I want, or this is what I feel like this is what I desire, this is what I believe in. We don't do it. We procrastinate over and over and over. We don't have the discipline or the focus or whatever, or the follow through. It does step on our buzz. It does, how free and how loose and how grounded and how in joy can we feel when we're breaking those promises. And, right now I'm trying to get back the promise to lose the COVID pounds. And it's like, I have failed several times, and I'm like, it really does get under your skin. And so I understand. I think nobody gets a pass here. We're all human. We go in and out of these periods of congruence and flow, and sometimes we're detouring. And what I always have to remind myself and others is that the more we are on this conscious path and try to stay there as much as we can, the quicker the recovery is. We just bring ourselves back gently, not harshly, gently, and we find ourselves back.
I say to my clients, no fault, blame, guilt, shame. It doesn't serve us at all. It's just look at it. What's going on there? Just be curious, and then we get to move forward.
Yes. And that's so true, that if we can look for the takeaways in everything, and just what did we just learn, and we really don't have to beat ourselves or anyone else up. It's like we might have the moment of, oh shoot, and then, but how quickly can we move into feedback? What's the feedback here from this perceived or old, the former perceived failure? What's the feedback I'm learning? And then everything suits us, everything, nothing's for naught, truly.
Yeah. And then it goes back to circling back to what you talked about before, about the support missing. So it's, what support do I need? Where can I receive?
Yes. Where can I receive? Yes. The receiving piece. So sometimes as women, we're not as practiced at that either. Are we? Which again goes back to trusting ourselves. It's all connected. Listening, giving ourselves that space to receive, and not depleting in ourselves, and not having all of these, it comes up in the body, adrenal fatigue. Oh my God, how many entrepreneurs do you know that have gotten really exhausted because they're working around the clock? No, that's not what it means. But we can fall into that trap.
Absolutely.
But can we find that integration of focus and hard work with respite and care and play? And by the way, I'm still working on that too. I don't have it figured out completely. I think we're always working, massaging that balance for ourselves.
Yeah. And it evolves. I mean, for those of us with kids, or, all sorts of different things going on, as they change age, as we change age, I'm gracefully going gray. That's part of my...
Beautiful. It's actually beautiful. I'm admiring it as we speak. And your earrings bring it out. I love everything that's going on back of you. It's beautiful. Aesthetically, I love it, Edwina.
I thought it would be gorgeous. Such a struggle, but I'm actually really enjoying it. Let's dive into the last piece of, the purpose of this conversation, which is creating your beautiful future. So Marcy, tell us what you're working on at the moment.
Well, the pandemic was an interesting time for all of us, right? Because it opened up new fields and of awareness, of space that we never even would have imagined. This women's group that I used to produce live events in Los Angeles, small and large, is now virtual. So that's what I'm doing. I'm now saying, Australia, you can join us. The timing work, it's usually 5:30 to 7 our time Pacific. So that's really exciting, because I would love to have connection and access to women all over the world. How beautiful to come together and connect with each other. And also I invite thought leaders speaking on a whole host of self-development and professional growth topics. So there's that. And also the other new thing that's come into my world is new love. And new love that's coming up on about, a year and a half. But it's new love that is teaching me so much. And from that place, this I didn't see coming either. But I have, of course, been through my own life experience that was also off the traditional track of getting married, having children, staying married to the same person happily ever after. My parents were married for 74 years, had an epic love affair, but my story was different, as many are in this day and age. And so I basically, decided that, gosh, I'm having this experience. I've learned so much. I counsel my private clients on this all the time, their love life, if they're single, or their marriages, if they're doing couples work. So I launched a class called Finding Love Again, and in midlife, 40 plus. And it's been so much fun. It's a 4-week webinar with also live discussion and Q&A. And I had one in March. Then I just finished one up. I had written articles at Goop and Maria Shriver about it. And so that's been super fun, because that is integrating my own personal experience as Dr. Marcy Cole, along with the professional, which has been incredibly liberating and super fun to share. So there's that. And I plan to continue. And then it's also going to be time for writing, finally. I've written chapters in books, but I'm ready to write my own book. And it's time. It is time, Edwina.
It's time.
Send the good juju my way, please, because this is the other thing. How many of this audience have a story to share, wisdom to share, experience to share, guidance, and we can sit on that project for years. But then I also believe that when it's time, it's time. And when the stars align, it'll happen. So I look forward to completing that in the next couple of years as well.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that this is the book that's going with this series is my first book. And
so exciting.
I had no idea what I was doing when I was going into it. I was like, I'm going to do this. And then it's just, I work out this bit, and then I work out this bit. And, like a couple of days ago, it was, you need this ISBN number and a barcode. I was like, goodness me, that feels very grown up. All right, I'll work out how to do that. And that's the entrepreneurial journey, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And someone said to me once, when we're right there is when we learn it. Like we can't necessarily, obviously we're not going to know it all and learn it all and master it all. But kudos to you, my dear, for putting this together. And I'm honored to be a part of it. And it's very exciting. And oh, wow. And not only have you put it together, but you've included all of these beautiful minds and hearts, which is even going to be more of a blessing. So thank you in advance for all the hard work that you've done and how it's about to be shared with the world.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's, I get to call this work, and then I pinch myself every day and go, gee whiz, is it supposed to be this much fun? It's actually really great.
Oh, God, it's wonderful. Beautiful. Yeah. Yes. That's the other thing. Sometimes we have to go through the muck, but most of the time, it actually should be stimulating and joyful and fun. Right? Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to call it work, if we called it, our life focus or our life share or whatever it is. But anyway, I'm excited. I think
it gets to be both. I mean, if it was all joy and rainbows, we wouldn't appreciate the joy and rainbows.
True. That's true.
We have to have the muck, and then we get the balance, and that's life.
Right. That's right. It's like the kids that I'm working with too, where the joy of learning comes with the focus and the finals week and the papers we have to write of course. So it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I know you have a beautiful gift for our audience, Marcy. Did you want to take a minute just to let them know what that is?
Of course. Well, I did a talk many years ago on a stage called Living in Your Higher Ground, which is really, Esther Hicks talks about it in terms of vortex. The idea that this is the field where we don't have to be in the fray. We get outside of the fray of the physical world and all the interpersonal drama, the external stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what we're calling in, but something we have to deal with. So I decided to record an 8-minute meditation. I called it 8 Minutes to Higher Ground, which is not religious. It's not about that. Some people think it's about that. It's really about 8 minutes back to you, back to your field, back to your heart, back to your truth, like we've talked about today. And so if people go to Marcy at drmarcycole.com, I think on the right side of the page, there's an opt-in box to put your name and email, and you will receive in your inbox a copy of that 8-minute meditation, which I say download to your phone. Do it in the morning when you wake up. Do it in the middle of your day. It's a way to let go of the stuff that's draining us or weighing heavily on us or doesn't belong to us, and filling up with all the good stuff to nourish us from the inside out. Yes.
Beautiful. So as a final question, I would love to ask you, what does Dr. Marcy Cole see when you think of a phenomenal woman?
Oh man, it's such a beautiful concept and imagery and words. A phenomenal woman to me is a woman that really listens to the truth of her heart, has the courage to follow that, to express that with no apology, no holds barred, generosity of spirit, and that wants the very best and the very same thing for others, and can be just as much of a cheerleader and an audience and a conduit of support for others along her way as well.
I'm always curious, do you have somebody in mind when you make that description? Are you imagining somebody in particular?
Well, I didn't even put this together when you asked me, but Maya Angelou, I think, wrote the poem Phenomenal Woman, but that's why she's coming up. But look at this woman who overcame hardship and went inward, had to go inward, didn't speak as a child for years or something. And then, I remember her saying, if someone's in my home who is not kind to someone else, I kindly ask them to leave.
Yeah, I heard her say that.
Remember that? And so she's so many jewels, so much love, so much wisdom, so much grace, but also kept her boundary.
Yeah.
We can be strong as feminine leaders and sensitive at the same time and strong against it, right? The two are not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
So I can think of so many, oh my gosh, but she was the first one I thought of.
I love to name these women because I think that they deserve the recognition. And this series and the work that I do was absolutely born from that poem. So I heard Oprah pay homage to Maya when she recited it. And she said, in 1978, when I first started reciting this poem, I did not believe I was a phenomenal woman. I spoke it into being, and I thought, I'm going to take hold of that and run with it.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I was actually Oprah's first intern when she came to Chicago. So I have seen her. There were 5 of us in that office. 5. Can you imagine that? Yeah. We've all come a long way since then. She's gotten into the stratosphere of impact, right? So
wow. Oh my gosh. I've said forever I want to be Oprah when I grow up. So the fact that you've had that close connection with her, that's just that's amazing.
Beautiful. But we're grateful that you're Edwina, because we're like, gosh, I love that whole concept that what we see in another is within us, right? And we can't see it. It's so beautiful. And women, there's the sisterhood piece that we do together. And then there's sometimes that catty competitive stuff that starts in junior high and all that. But boy, if we realize that we're just seriously a connection and a reflection and a conduit for one another, then it's like, whoa, just stay in our lane and hold hands across the, and it's good. It's beautiful. It's so I'm really glad you're putting out this whole work. Thank you for all of it. Seriously, it's so beautiful. It's gonna serve, I hope, millions of people around the globe, Edwina. Then because it's the truth sets us free, and it lands in our heart, and it supports our journey for sure.
Well, I think we're all role models in our own right. And that's, part of the purpose of doing this series. I mean, I do lots of vision work, and I think about, yes, there's pieces of Oprah that I want to aspire to, and pieces of Brene Brown, and pieces of Maya Angelou, and pieces of Lisa Nichols, and pieces of Dr. Marcy Cole. And I look at all these beautiful women and I go, oh, like having these role models is amazing. And we're all role models, whether it's to our children, people in our community, or a larger audience. But
yes,
inspiring work.
it sure is. And I'll leave you with one funny moment in my life where I said to my former husband, I said, I just come to LA and I'm meeting all these amazing people and building this women's network. And I said, I feel like I'm falling in love with a new woman every day. And he said, well, maybe you're a lesbian. He was being, maybe you're a lesbian. I said, well, if I was, I would not be faithful. I couldn't do it, because we are pretty freaking phenomenal. We are phenomenal. We really are.
Yeah,
really
I have a lot of girl crushes, a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I think I've just formed one today. Hello. Yeah.
Marcy, this has just been such a beautiful interview, and I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Edwina. Thank you for the pleasure and privilege, and I look forward to continuing on lots of fronts together.
Yay. All right. Bye for now.